Hello everyone, and today we're going to talk a little bit about balance, because currently the hero pool is so imbalanced that if it was a tightrope performer, it wouldn't be a very good one. Look, that is a difficult analogy to just instantly go, alright, before you judge, it's your turn, okay? Here you go. The current hero pool is so imbalanced that, alright, lay them on me, okay? Lay them on me. Let's see what you got. See if you can do it. So, I started researching and making sure I knew what was up with plays at all various levels and all of that jazz before I talked about Doomfist. I didn't want to just make up stuff, because that's just downright irresponsible, and really the picture I found is pretty damn grim. 12 out of 24 heroes are just not picked, which is insane. 50% of the roster doesn't see the light of day, and even then you have to go all the way to 18 before you start seeing a consistent pick. That's right, only 6 heroes in the game are picked consistently. Is that not kind of disgusting? And the thing is, Overwatch as a game cannot have that as its balance, because of the simple reasoning that it makes high-level games dull as dishwater, because not only do you see the same 6 heroes game after game, you see the same 6 heroes game after game twice, because Overwatch is in the, well, I would say as personal taste-wise, unfortunate position of having the ability to have the same hero on both teams, which I personally hate. And yes, a big reason for that hate comes from the undeniable human motive to be that special snowflake, which, completely objective, is a little bit silly, but you also have this, you know, I'm here playing soldier, being a badass, got everybody in my vision range, and then the enemy team, there's a clone of me. Why is there a clone of me? Why am I fighting a clone? Tell me the reason behind this. Where is the logic? And look, I know a lot of people don't care one twizzle about something like that, but I kind of do. It bugs me. So when you see the same 6 heroes doubled, it's, well, less than entertaining to both watch and play after a while, I really feel like. And the thing is, you can't change this by having a pick ban. You can only have one copy of a hero in a game at once, like in Dota, for example, which, by the way, Dota's system is fantastic, because you can't have the same hero on both teams. You always get a mixed bag of 5 different versus 5 different, and it actually feels like a proper fight, like those 5 heroes came together to fight those 5, not a clone off. But either way, you can't have that in Overwatch because it needs to rely on the hero switching system. You're supposed to counter people by changing mid-game, and it would obviously restrict that too much. But that doesn't really happen because it's just a match of who can play the same lineup better than the enemy, and well, that's not great, is it? I have been toying with the idea of what if Overwatch initially had a pick ban system. So the initial lineup of both teams was 12 different heroes. You can still change freely, but you can't change to a hero already in the game. Do you think that would be too restrictive, or do you think that would be a nice balance? You keep that uniqueness, but yes, you can change to another hero, and then the hero that you wear suddenly is open to the enemy team if they want to grab it. I don't know, I kind of feel like that might be a cool game mode, but even then, I don't know, that's kind of by the by. But that's why it sucks when you have such a small hero pool, because it really doubles up on the dullness. So how is it possible to fix this? Well, Doomfist is actually a really good example of that. Outside of obviously tweaking numbers on heroes to make one strong and one weak, which by the way is still terribly lazy balancing. I hate spotlight balancing. Alright, this season you 6 get to be really strong. Alright, next season you 6 get to be really strong, and so on and so forth. It's not great. Obviously, ideally you want to aim for all 24 heroes being viable, which isn't possible in practice because players will always decide decide which ones are better than the other, but I would say at least 12 being picked regularly is a good point to be at, and we are, well, nowhere near that point. So how do you shift it up a little? Well, you need to engineer a system where there are either 2 viable team setups, so you see 6 versus a different 6, or you implement heroes like Doomfist, which really change things up, because Doomfist is so powerful to the point that we're gonna see, or at least likely, you know, potentially, I guess, if I'm gonna be completely objective, then you are gonna see teams built around supporting and using their Doomfist as their main force to drive home the win. So then what do? Well, you either pick a team that is, well, the same team and do it better, or you go for Doomfist counters. So what you do is you implement a really strong hero that is strangely countered by existing, air quotes, weak heroes, thereby giving them a subconscious power boost in players' minds without actually changing their relative power. This way you can use perception balancing to a positive effect, instead of going, everyone's complaining about being hooked by a hero that's only picked 2% of the time, so we're gonna nerf him. Then you can actually use that perception to change positively on a hero. Like, yeah, Hanzo sucks, but Hanzo's really good at killing Doomfist, so yeah, Hanzo's great, and you've not had to change him at all. Positive perception changes are not an inherently bad thing. But the thing is, all that does is inherently shift which are the 6, air quotes, best heroes being played. While it is a really elegant way to shape the meta by simply adding a hero that will warp it, again, it doesn't really fix, it just changes. And obviously the only way to truly fix this is to somehow achieve perfect mechanical balance and strength between the characters, but that's obviously a pipe dream and very difficult to do. But then you look at games like Dota that have 100 out of 105-ish heroes get played. Even LoL has at least half the roster being played, which is still a lot of heroes. God, there is too many characters in that game. What the fuck? I had a look the other day. There's so many since I last played. Wow. And you have to say, well, clearly it's possible then. And they have much bigger character rosters, which means it's much easier for characters to get forgotten, as any kind of niche they could fill is done better by someone else. So with 24 characters, you think you could give them all an edge at least somewhere and get them all playing at least somehow. And again, having the same hero on both teams does limit that. If you weren't allowed to pick the same hero that someone else is currently playing across both teams, you would force at least half the roster into play, and you'd force much more creative strategies, as you have to find a way to make weaker, you know, seemingly heroes work. And I do think that might actually be the best solution, because obviously you do have the map approach where you shape and design maps in such a way that some heroes, despite being picked constantly, are actually too weak to be considered on that map, but that is a difficult thing to do. But you do see it currently with Far Mercy. They get picked on control point a lot, in fact enough to be considered, you know, good, strong heroes. On any other game mode, then they suddenly appear to be trash tier, which is good, you know. If we think on control point, well, we're going to see Far and Mercy instead of the usual rigmarole, that's at least some variance. But then again, even with map balancing, you end up in a situation where each map means this versus this. At least that's more variety than just the same no matter what, but it still could be better. The thing that does hold Overwatch back in doing this, though, if I had to put a finger onto why it's always just 6 to 7 heroes that are dominating at any given time, although I will admit those 6 to 7 do change often enough that it's, you know, at least refreshing, but I think it's due to the fact that it's an inherently simpler game than something like Dota or LoL, because when you think about it, you've got a small shootery map, and your objective is to capture a glowing square. Compared to the amount of strategies you can come up with to play through a game of Dota or LoL, the amount of strategies possible to capture said glowing square is laughably smaller. Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of ways of doing it, But when you take the objective, capture the point, you take a hero pool as small as 24, it's easy to see why someone can go, yeah, this 6, that strategy, that's clearly the best way to go, and it kind of ends up, well, yeah, being the best way to go. Whereas when you've got a game that lasts as long, is more complex with items and farming and comp and lane setups and how you can handle the jungle and timings and towers and all of the rigmarole that goes with Dota and LoL, loads more factors need to be taken into account, so you end up having a use for loads more heroes, and this is kind of something that's very hard to rectify. Honestly, adding more map complexity is a way to go about it, but you don't want to go too far. I do like what they're doing with Doomfist in that he is a different type of hero. He's not just aim and shoot, he does involve more ability usage like an actual MOBA hero, and maybe if we end up with more of these, we can end up seeing a situation where you have 6 heroes versus 6 heroes, and all of them are playing people that don't really rely on shooting per se, they all rely on abilities, and that could create some really cool situations. And look, I don't have a magic solution in this video. By the nature of Overwatch's game modes and the way they want it to be played, coupled with the fact that you can have the same hero on both teams, coupled with such a small hero pool, it's a real bind to be in. In a year's time, I could definitely see it improving with a larger hero pools and more complexity to the game, but as of right now, it's a rock and a hard place. There's really no way to solve such a dry meta at the top end. Then again, it is specifically the top end. When you just get to like Diamond up to Entry Masters, you can kind of pick anyone, and as long as they fit with the current other picks on your team, and as long as you personally can rock that hero, you can do well. Like currently I'm playing against Diamonds and I still pick Roadhog despite him being hilariously bad right now, and I still do well because I personally can play Roadhog really well, but a pro player would never touch him. So at least you know, average person playing game for fun level, it is actually quite diverse, which is nice, and really that is what's important. But you've got to think about the viewer when we are looking at a boring esports level of the game. Though, interestingly enough, we actually got some map statistics recently from good old Jeffy Boy, and nearly every map, at least in quick play, has a 50% win rate for both attack and defense, which is very impressive asymmetry construction across the maps. It really is. That is very nice. Horizon is the most imbalanced map, and I think you can all feel that. Like, defending is just so much harder than attacking that place. It's kind of ridiculous. But I do want to leave you with one last thought. If you had to choose a hero and change them in a way that makes sense both lore-wise and with an existing mechanic that they already do, to make them not necessarily more powerful but at least more interesting or fun, in an effort to get them, well, played a little bit more, even if it's just for pure entertainment value, what would it be? I mean stuff like, let's say if Reinhardt's charge, you could change direction once while charging, like you had a instant side thruster that could make you go at a right angle. I could see that making sense for him. I could see that being built into his suit, and it would give him kind of some cool strategic options. So the one that I like is, you know how when Symmetra's beaming, she can pick up random debris and basketballs? Well, imagine if while she was holding her left click and that field was out and she wasn't connected to anyone, she would kind of like Defense Matrix block projectiles, but instead of just disappearing them, she would actually catch them in the end of her beam. They'd build up to a limit, and then when you let go, they all explode outwards and just fly randomly in directions, and they become yours. If they hit an enemy, they do what they should do, and so on and so forth. So you could just have a real concoction of stuff that's being launched at you and sent on your way, and there is a precedent for that because it does pick up stuff around the environment, so it totally could gravity gun style catch projectiles. I think that would be really cool. I don't think it would make her crazy, but I think it would be a lot of fun and make sense. So I want to open the floor to you guys on that front. What would you do? What tweak would you make to a character that you can explain rationally that would really give them a cool kick and get people playing playing it, if only just to try the cool new thing. But yeah, there you go, a kind of ranty, discussion-y, balancy thing. I don't really know what this was, but I had fun, and hopefully you guys did too. Like if you enjoyed this, subscribe for more, and I will see you next time. Goodbye. You've been watching.